Welcome aboard everyone, this is the first video on the channel and this is going to be an insight, a starter for the series I'm starting on Neovim. This series is going to be for you if you are a computer science major or are planning to be one after high school. I've been using Neovim for over a year now and it has provided me with a huge productivity spike once I've got used to it. So I've decided to dedicate a whole video to it and let others too enjoy the joy of Vimming. Let's dive right in. First of all, what is Vim? We need to ask this question as Neovim has been built upon the foundation of Vim, as you shall see. So Vim is a highly configurable text editor designed for efficient editing of plain text and source code. It is an enhanced version of the old Unix text editor V. So V was released in 1976 and obviously a piece of code this old would have been programmed keeping the limitations of the hardware and software in the mind of the developers, which is no longer relevant, so it was resuscitated by Bramlina in the 1990s in the form of VI Improved, or our beloved Vim for short. This is a very powerful text editor, the pros and cons of which we shall see now. So, just as a coin has two sides, Vim has both pros and cons. One, it is powerful and efficient and very lightweight in the computers. It is highly customizable, as in you can define it to look like the way you want it. It has a wide availability. It is available on basically all Linux distros, Mac OS, and even though it's slightly complicated to use, it can be used on Windows as well. Of course, it has a rich feature set owing to the large multi-load of plugins the community has. And the cons are it has a steep learning curve because you'll have to learn VimScript, which is a new language for scripting it. It has a non-intuitive interface, which is obvious as people get stuck in it for the first time, they can't even exit it. It has limited graphical capabilities because you cannot use images inside of it, but it is more or less flattened by this con is more or less flattened by the fact that you can use nerd font inside of it. It does not have mouse support, which is the largest con for me. That is why Neovim came into existence. Neovim is a fork of Vim aimed at improving and modernizing the Vim experience while maintaining compatibility with its vast system of plugins and configurations. So, in order to address these shortcomings and to further improve Vim, Neovim was introduced. This meant that if you already had an existing Vim config, just plug the vimrc file in neovim config and it will work like a part of it. Neovim is highly back compatible. It was released in 2014 to address some limitations and extend the capabilities of Vim. They are 99.9% similar except for some shining points where Neovim is refined, such as better performance. So Neovim does not use just VimScript, it also uses Lua, which is one of the fastest scripting languages on the face of the earth, which owes its better performance as compared to Vim. Then it has asynchronous plugin executions, which means plugins are executed as they are wanted and not as soon as Vim is called. So whenever you call Vim, Vim will load all the plugins you have noted down in your vimrc. However, in Neovim, you have the capability of only calling a plugin when it is called. This leads to faster startup times and in effect better performance. Then we have modern UI and UI API, including mouse support, which is a thumbs up. So modern UI and UI API means it is easier to code, debug, and edit plugins for the program. And UI API more or less stands for the same thing. It has mouse support, so yeah, you can use the interface with your mouse, which makes it easier to use. Then we have a built-in terminal emulator, which makes it easier to run code as compared to Vim's, because whenever you write a Python file in Vim, in order to run it, you'll have to exit Vim, type Python path name in the terminal, and then run it, and then check again. However, because Neovim has a built-in terminal emulator, it is no longer needed, and you can just run the code inside of Neovim itself. Last but not least, we have language server protocols, because This means that you can have code completions, code checks inside of Neovim itself without running the code, compiling the document, and so this saves time, especially for me in terms of LaTeX document, which I have to actually address after the slide. But and lastly, we have cross-platform support. Neovim is much better suited on Windows as compared to Vim. This is another enhancement which might be a good point for most of you people out there who use Windows. So as we can see, it has enormous potential. Neovim is basically a PDE, a personal development environment, and correctly configured, it can work much better than IDEs. Now, if I had to talk about myself, why I particularly use Neovim, so I had to code in various languages at a point of time: C, Python, LaTeX, Octave, R, a lot of them. So instead of having 5 different IDEs, I decided to combine 3 of them into one. So Octave was no longer needed when I actually found Vim, so I only had 3 compiled into one. So instead of Xcode, PyCharm, and Text Studio, I only had Neovim. This had multiple advantages. For example, one, my computer didn't get clogged. I saved about 80 gigabytes of memory. Xcode alone is like 28 gigabytes. So saved space. Next, it's lighter, efficient, and customizable. So it made it like really nice to work on. And the main point, the sheer difference in the compilation times. So to give you an insight into this, Overleaf, which is an online tech document compiler, uses about 8 to 9 seconds for the same file. Text Studio uses 4 to 5, and Neovim used to compile it in less than 2 seconds. So, in order to conclude, in this series, I will be going over 1. What is Neovim? Which is this video itself. The next video will be about installing, navigating, and learning how to create Neovim. Then for the third video is going to be about configuring Neovim with init.lua/init.vim, plugin managers, plugins, and all of that. Next, we're going to learn how to configure plugins, and lastly, we'll use Neovim for specific use cases like LaTeX typescripting and Python environment. And if I get the time for it as a bonus video, I can give you some efficiency tips. So this covers up this whole video. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.